medicine itself is kind of nebulous.
My brain is just wired differently.
You're feeling symptoms that the tests aren't showing exist.
People need to hear your story.
Welcome to Major Pain. I'm your host, Jesse Mercury, and this week we'll be speaking with Stacey from Rare Patient Voice about the amazing organization she works for and the parallel health journeys between herself and her daughter. This episode has been a long time coming. I realized recently we've never had anyone from Rare Patient Voice on the show, and this has been a huge piece of Major Pain for a long time. I love our partnership with Rare Patient Voice. So this was a really exciting opportunity to get to learn more about that organization and get to talk to a really amazing person with an incredible story. We'll jump into our conversation with Stacey in just a couple minutes. I have a few announcements before then, and of course I have to tell you about Rare Patient Voice. This is an amazing organization that connects patients and caregivers with research studies and surveys. So if you have a diagnosis of any kind or you are a caregiver, you can use our affiliate link, rarepatientvoice.com/majorpainpodcast to sign up. You'll be contacted if there's a research study or survey that fits your profile. And if you participate in a study or a survey, you'll be paid for your time, an average of $120 per hour. We've had a ton of people sign up to Rare Patient Voice using this link over the years, and I've had some really great feedback from people who participated in studies and surveys. You know, we all have these diseases, whether we want them or not. We have so much expertise about living with that disease, and you might as well get paid for that expertise. Am I right? So again, that link is rarepatientvoice.com/majorpainpodcast. I have a couple pieces of news to share. Recently, I announced that I was ending the Patreon campaign, so I just wanted to reiterate this news one more time. I know there's people out there that may or may not catch every single episode. The quick version of the story is that my life has gotten so busy that I feel like I can't give the Patreon the attention that it deserves. I've gotten so far behind in recording bonus episodes. There will be one final bonus episode with myself and Andy, and we still have not recorded it. It will happen, I promise, and I am keeping the Patreon deactivated but alive until I can get that final bonus episode out. Making sure that no one is being charged anymore for Patreon, but the account still exists and I can still drop that final bonus episode when it's ready. I want to say one more time, thank you so much to everyone who's been supporting this podcast on Patreon over the years. Got me through one of the hardest times of my life, and now I'm back to work full time. I am the general manager of the Majestic Bay Theaters here in Seattle, and I'm also working as the community manager for Cosmodio Instruments, a guitar pedal company founded by my best friend Barton. These are both dream jobs for me, and it's just awesome. And I'm rearranging my life to make sure that I can still get this podcast out. I'm now working with Trisha and Casey, which has been so helpful. They are doing amazing work. I'm so appreciative. So between all these different changes I've made, it has freed up the time that I need to keep the podcast coming out, which is so important to me. I mean, I love doing this so much, and I've gotten some really incredible feedback recently. I love hearing from people who listen to the show. And, you know, I've been a content creator for a long time, and I've made all sorts of things, but the feedback I get about Major Pain is very different from the feedback I get about anything else that I've ever made. I hear from people that this show is helping them to live, helping them to get through the day with the chronic illness. And, you know, it's really impactful feedback, and I'm getting emotional even just thinking about it. But thank you all so much for reaching out. Every time I hear from someone who listens to the show, it really makes my day. And if you ever want to share feedback, a great place to do it is by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen to the show. We're now also on YouTube with video versions coming out of the podcast, so you can watch the show on YouTube and also on Spotify. Okay, one big piece of news to share before we jump into our episode with Stacey. So after my wedding, Andy and I did a podcast where we announced the Undiagnosed Disease Fund. In lieu of a wedding registry, we asked our community to donate to a fund so that we could purchase genetic testing for individuals in need, people with mystery illnesses, people who could really use that genetic testing to try to figure out what is going on in their body. I'm happy to say that we've completed genetic testing for 3 people already. We have gotten some interesting information from the testing, and people are following up with their doctors. Everyone who we're testing with is invited to come on the show. I would love to share their stories at some point when the time is right. And I'm really excited to say that we still have money left. We have money left over after doing this genetic testing. So we are looking for another person. If you are listening to this podcast, if you have a mystery illness and you feel that genetic testing would be a helpful step in the process for you to try to figure out what your diagnosis is, hit me up. majorpainpodcast@gmail.com. This has been just a remarkably rewarding thing to be engaging in. You know, my history, I was the person who was undiagnosed forever. I needed help to purchase genetic testing. Andy did that for me. And it was just a huge, huge moment in my journey. It didn't provide the answer, but it ruled out thousands of diseases in one fell swoop. And it helped lead us in the right direction because we knew what we were looking for was not genetic at that point, culminating in my diagnosis of mast cell activation syndrome and small fiber neuropathy. And my life is still forever changed by having that diagnosis, getting the right medication. It's just something I'm remarkably, eternally grateful for. And if we can help anyone on that journey, that is an extreme joy for us. Our community of family and friends really had our backs when we announced that we wanted to do this, and we raised over $9,000. Unbelievable. So like I said, if you need genetic testing, reach out to me, majorpainpodcast@gmail.com. We'll see how many people respond to this. We have one spot available. If we have more than one person reach out, we will talk to everyone and then, make a decision, probably through a random drawing, because how do you weigh one person's need against another's in this case? You just really can't. Everyone's need is valid. But if you're thinking about reaching out to us, please don't hesitate. We'd love to hear from you. majorpainpodcast@gmail.com. And one last thing as we jump into our episode with Stacey today, I will remind you that I am not a medical professional. Please do not take any medical action based off what you hear on this podcast without first consulting your doctor. All right, and with that, we're going to get into our fantastic episode with Stacey from Rare Patient Voice about being not only a patient, but also a caregiver to her daughter. Let's do it. Stacey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to share this space with you, and I really appreciate being part of your community today.
I'm so excited. We have been struggling to get this recording to happen. We've rescheduled so many times. And the last time we actually sat down to record, there was a national Zoom outage and we couldn't even get online. So it's been a comedy of errors, but here we are, finally getting to record today. I'm so excited to chat with you, not just about your own journey, but you work with Rare Patient Voice, which, as we were just discussing before starting to record, has been an incredible partnership with Major Pain, an organization that I am so thrilled to be supporting and working with and being supported by. And we're going to talk about that today as well.
Great.
Let's get into it. Stacey, let's get to know you a little bit. Why don't you tell us about yourself?
All right. So, hi, everybody. My name is Stacey. I am currently living in the state of Hawaii. I have been here for 25 years. I met my amazing husband out here, and we just recently celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
I am a mother to two children. I have a 17-year-old son who is ready to embark into the ginormous, big, bad world out there. And I'm just holding on to at least one more year with having him home. We also have an 11-year-old daughter who loves to dance and is a huge advocate in her community for bringing attention to food allergies and chronic illnesses. I love the outdoors. We love to hike and surf. And we have a little dog. Her name's Pencil. And I love community. Community is extremely important to me, and I'm so blessed to live in a community that is so supportive. Our village is amazing, and that's pretty much it. I've been with Rare Patient Voice for about 4 years, and I absolutely love what I do.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know that you have your own health journey and you are a caregiver, as you just mentioned, your own daughter's journey. So we have so much to talk about today. But for anyone who is not super familiar, I mean, I talk a little bit about Rare Patient Voice in the intro to every episode, but let's just set the stage for anyone who has not heard of Rare Patient Voice or who is less familiar. What is Rare Patient Voice?
So Rare Patient Voice, we connect patients and caregivers to paid medical research studies. It comes in many different opportunities for individuals. We have online surveys. We do web-assisted phone interviews. We do in-person interviews. We have focus groups, bulletin boards, tons of different ways to voice your experience through your own personal journey. So clients come to Rare Patient Voice as we have a panel of over 100,000 patients and family caregivers. And these are real people, these are real individuals, these are true experiences. And it's super easy to be part of that community. When we have studies that match your conditions, we simply send an invite to you via email, and it's completely up to you whether or not you decide to open the email. Once you open the email, you go through just a quick pre-screener to see if you qualify for the study. If you qualify for the study, you can complete the study, and once the study closes, we compensate all of our patients and caregivers on average $120 an hour. So it's a great opportunity for individuals to voice their opinions without leaving the comfort of their own home. And it's real medical research, and we're connecting them with real patients and real caregivers.
Yeah, it's such a cool program. And I've heard from listeners of the show who have participated and who have been paid for their time, and they said they had a great experience. And it's just such a cool win-win situation, because for anyone like me, living with a rare disease, I'm very interested in what the research may be in the future. I take all this medication all the time. I still have flare-ups sometimes. It's still a big part of my life. I'm actually, getting off of a big flare-up today for the first time in a while. Every time I feel like, I've got this in the past, the chronic illness is not really affecting me that much anymore. I push too hard and I flare myself up, and then I spend days recovering. So, I have a very different relationship to my illness now than I did when I started this podcast, but it is still a huge part of my life. And I'm still so invested in what may be coming around the corner in the future with research. So it's something that I'm so excited to be a part of, giving patients, empowering patients to participate in their own disease and the research in their own disease, I think is such a cool thing. And anyone who signs up using our link, rarepatientvoice.com/majorpainpodcast, actually supports the creation of this podcast at the same time. You have such an amazing, generous referral program. I know several people in the chronic illness advocacy world that are also referral partners through Rare Patient Voice. So it's just such a cool thing that you all are doing to give us an opportunity to support each other. And I just really, really appreciate all of your hard work. And anyone out there listening, if you're interested in being paid for your own expertise about your own chronic illness, or if you are a caregiver, head to rarepatientvoice.com/majorpainpodcast to sign up. Okay.
Yes, love that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Okay, Stacey, let's hear about your journey, your story. Stacey, what is your major pain?
My major pain. Thanks for asking. So my advocacy journey didn't really start until, in 2016, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. I had just had my little girl, who at that point, so she was just an infant, and she had already been going through all of her own little journey as well. So having thyroid cancer kind of came out of left field. It was something that I was ignoring for a long time. I felt symptoms for months and months and months. And being a mother to 2 children, I just chalked it up to be, I'm tired because I have kids. I'm exhausted because I have kids and I'm working. I had all of these symptoms that I just kept suppressing and ignoring, hoping that they would eventually go away. And they didn't. They got worse. And I was sitting at work one day and my throat was just bothering me so bad. And when I touched it, I actually felt a lump on it. And I literally got up from my desk. Like, I couldn't hear anything. Like, I was having this total anxiety attack. Couldn't hear anything. I just got up from my desk, left my job, didn't even tell anybody, got in my car and drove home and was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot bigger than me. I need to take care of this. And the whole process happened so quick. I saw the doctor. We did a biopsy. Following week, we had the results. And then literally a week after that, as soon as we got the results, he was like, we need to get this out now. It was stage 1 thyroid cancer. And I said, okay. Wow. And then the whole process from start to finish was less than 3 weeks. It was boom, 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 boom. And then I'm laying in bed with an infant and a 7-year-old. And
wow.
And I was bruised all over. And meanwhile, I'm still handling phone calls for my daughter because, as I mentioned earlier, my daughter has also been on her own chronic illness journey. And I really didn't jump into this position as a patient advocate until my daughter, because when my daughter was diagnosed with her condition, I didn't know anybody who had a 2-year-old that had ever been diagnosed with Crohn's disease. I never had a family member that had Crohn's disease. And we're living on this teeny tiny rock in the middle of nowhere. And I had no support. I had no tribe, nothing. Even the doctors out here had no idea what to do with her. I didn't even get a diagnosis for her until we finally left. They kept juggling us back and forth to different doctors, different islands, different specialists. And by the time she was almost 3 years old, she was only 19 pounds, and we were going to lose her.
Wow.
So we made the decision to jump on a red-eye flight one night, and we flew to Philadelphia. And we walked into the emergency room of the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and begged for help, and in less than 24 hours, we had a diagnosis, we had a treatment plan.
Wow.
And so once we had a diagnosis, I was like, okay, great. Now we can treat this and we can move on. Well, little did I know that the term chronic illness is, it is chronic. It is something that you manage. You don't cure your chronic illness, you manage your chronic illness. And it took us years and years and years to finally find how to properly manage her condition. And she's 11 years old now, and every day is different. Even though we have the perfect medication for her right now, she still struggles with joint and muscle pains. She still has, constant flare-ups. So it's a constant battle with just, maintaining a baseline. As long as she wakes up and she's happy and she goes to school, that's a win for us, So, so literally Iris is what brought me to Rare Patient Voice. I always talk about community and how it is so important to me. So when we finally had a diagnosis for Iris, I turned to social media. I immediately turned to social media. I started an Instagram page, literally asking for help. And overnight, the chronic illness community opened their arms far and wide and brought me in and held my hand through every doctor's appointment, gave me lists of questions that I should be asking doctors. And without the help of the chronic illness community, I don't think that Iris's health journey would have been so progressive so quickly. And to this day, I'm so extremely thankful for the chronic illness community. And then Rare Patient Voice found me through social media. And it was right after COVID had happened, and they asked if I would help jumpstart their social media presence. And I wasn't looking for work. And I said, well, I might as well dip my toe in it and see, how it goes. And of course, I just, I was in the Crohn's community, but there is a whole entire world of support out there. And all of a sudden it just went from, okay, yeah, I'll do a few posts for you a week, to, oh my gosh, I love this community. I love bridging the gaps between this community and helping that happen. I love being a resource, for individuals and organizations. And it's just turned into this heartwarming, I wake up every day so excited for what I get to do, because hanging out with all of you guys is really, honestly, it just fills my heart.
Wow. Amazing. Okay, so there are 2 parallel stories happening here. I mean, really,
that was
3.
a lot of information.
No, it's awesome. This is amazing. I mean, there's really 3 stories happening here. There's the story of you getting involved with Rare Patient Voice. There's the story of you being a caregiver for your daughter with Crohn's disease, a chronic illness, and she was diagnosed insanely young. And we have to hear more about that, obviously. I mean, how do you deal with that when you have an infant who has an illness and they can't tell you what's going on? And then we have your own journey with thyroid cancer on top of that. And I couldn't help but laugh when you said the cancer was such a fast thing, in and out in 3 weeks. I'm laughing because I actually had that experience as well. I had testicular cancer about almost exactly 10 years ago, and it was just snap your fingers. You're in, they find the cancer, you go to surgery, and you're out. That was my experience. I didn't even have to do any radiation or anything like that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, but that in contrast to the chronic illness experience where you can't get help, you can't figure it out. And like you said, you're isolated on this island, you're on Hawaii, and you can't find a doctor who can even figure out what's going on. You have to flee to Philadelphia to get a diagnosis. And that that is such a contrast to the cancer journey. And, cancer care in America is incredible. It's, very possibly some of the best in the entire world. Of course, this varies state to state, but it's just such a contrast to have those two parallel experiences. Let's start chronologically. It sounds like your thyroid cancer journey was the first. You have an infant at the time, and a 7-year-old, so your daughter and your son, who's about 7. Your daughter's just an infant. And what are the symptoms that you start having? I mean, I don't know anything about thyroid cancer. So what were you noticing in your body that you were trying to ignore that just could no longer be ignored?
So I would get this radiating feeling in my throat. Even when I went to see the doctor and I used that term radiating, he didn't quite understand what I was saying, but it literally felt like my thyroid was like sticking, like not my thyroid was literally sticking out, but it felt in my head like it was out to here. Like my throat felt like it was really big. When I would wake up in the morning, I would be totally fine. And then I would start work. And by the time I would get done work, I would be so exhausted that one day I pulled over and slept on the side of the road. Like the fatigue was insane. And like I said, I made excuses like it was because I was a full-time mom, full-time caregiver, so I just used that to mask my symptoms, right? So I had this radiating pain in my throat. And odd enough, like if I would drink half a cup of coffee, the feeling would go away. Then I became addicted to coffee because I was like, if I keep drinking coffee, it's going to go away.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't happen because then I started having adrenal problems. And there's been more caffeine in my life to this day. But so fatigue was the biggest thing. I've never in my life been so tired. So I definitely, being fatigued and being tired are absolutely two different things. And really that was it, just that radiating pain. Sometimes my ears would start to feel funny, almost like you have your fingers stuck inside your ears, and that would come and go. So then I was like, well, maybe that's blood pressure. Right, I went to school at the Institute for, it's called IIN, the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And so I was trying to diagnose myself with this and that and that and this. And finally I was like, stop, take 20 minutes, go see the doctor. You're going to be fine. Clear it up. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times, like I'll have all of these symptoms for certain things, and then I go see a doctor, and then all of a sudden the symptoms go away. Like it's
Oh yeah,
a
totally.
mental thing with me.
Yeah.
So I went, and he felt the lumps, and he was like, I definitely want to do a biopsy. First round, so it was a horrible experience getting a biopsy done. And a week later, he calls back and says, the biopsy was inconclusive. We have to do it again. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I told him how terrified I was. So he gave me a prescription for a single Valium, right? So I take this Valium before I go in, and it made me even more anxious.
Wow.
So I go into the office and I start sweating, and I can literally hear like everybody's footsteps. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I never should have taken that. I'm even more nervous now. But he did the biopsy and came back a week later, and he said, let's go ahead and take it out. And I had an appointment within 4 days for surgery, and that was it. And then a week later, we went back in. He took the stitches out, and he said, everything looks great. And I said, okay, now what? Now what? And he was like, that's it. He was like, you can come back in 6 months and we'll, take a look at it. He was like, I got it all. And I was like, okay. And he only took half of my thyroid. So I still have half of it. And that's how quick that whole thing was. And even to this day, I'll call him sometimes and be like, do I need to come in for follow-ups? And he's like, it's been almost 10 years now since that. But so far, everything's been great.
Wow. Yeah, I had to do 5 years of follow-up where I get CT scan, chest x-ray.
Yeah.
And I'm 5 years out from even doing the follow-up at this point, since it's been about 10 years. Sounds like about the same as you. So, yeah. The thyroid, if I'm remembering correctly, that regulates hormones. Is that correct?
Tons. So now now I'm perimenopause, right? And so now the half of my thyroid has always been enough for me. It's always been enough for whatever. And now that I'm 10 years in and I'm 43 years old, I'm getting closer to menopause. I'm thinking, the past few months, I've had all kinds of doctor's appointments just to make sure that, because I've been having all these crazy women symptoms all over the place. I'm here and then I'm there and then I'm here and then I'm there. I'm like losing my mind. And I'm like, I swear it's got to be my hormones. So I'm actually in that's where I'm at right now. We're tons of different doctor's appointments and we're just trying to regulate all my different hormones at this point now and taking it for what it is, because my little half a thyroid has done great for the past 10 years, but she might need a little help here shortly. But
Yeah, I'm assuming that must be a very difficult process because hormonal changes take so long to take effect, and they're really hard to track down as well. My wife had a pituitary adenoma that had significant hormonal changes attached to it, and she had surgery to have that removed. And every change just takes so long.
And then it's so hard to regulate those medications because it's not a one size fits all for every woman, So it's like, okay, here, have this dose. And then you're like losing your mind even more. And then they're like, okay, let's cut that dose. So it's this game that you have to commit to until you start to feel better. And you have to go through all of these ebbs and flows until you find your baseline. So it can be trying.
Yeah. And it's a really frustrating journey that you don't have any choice about whether or not you take. The only choice you have is to keep going and to keep trying. And when you get frustrated when something doesn't work and you just, you want to just throw it all away and say, hey, I don't want to do this. I didn't want to do this in the first place. Why am I spending all this time trying these medications? And, they're sending me in all these directions that I don't want to go. But you just have to do it. I mean, where do you find the discipline and the patience to continue on that journey?
I have 2 kids that I have to be present for. I have a marriage that I need to make sure that I uphold my end on, and I have to be happy, and if your hormones are all over the place, you're not happy with yourself, you're not happy with your home, you're not happy with anybody or anything. Like, hormones are insane. And my why is definitely keeping a happy home and keeping happy and healthy kids. And, I moved to Hawaii to have this loving, free spirit lifestyle, and if you wake up in the morning and you're a crazy monster, you take away the whole reason that you live in this unicorn and rainbow state, so. And there's nothing better than feeling well, and you don't realize how horrible you feel until you start feeling better. You're like, oh my gosh, I've been feeling like complete hell for the past 2 years, and I've been dealing with it and handling it, but I feel so good now. Like, I feel like a completely different person. And that can come down to, a simple tweak in a single hormone, that can go from monster to, what are we doing today, family? You know what I mean? Like, but it is a journey and it takes a long time. And I am smack dab in the middle of it right now. But I'm ready for the journey. So.
Yeah. And that's a very interesting statement on this cancer journey itself, that 10 years later, there are lingering effects. And it's just because your body is going through the natural change that you're going through at this point in your life. But that natural change combined with this, only having half of your thyroid, which, I mean, thank God, right? Thank God that that's even possible, that you can have that surgery and get by with half a thyroid. But 10 years down the road, it does have these consequences that you may not have been thinking about when you had the surgery in the first place. Of course, you still would have chosen to get the surgery because, cancer bad. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing how these, our bodies are like tumbleweeds just rolling through life, and we accumulate things that get stuck to us, and you don't know how that's going to affect you in the future. And you just have to deal with it when it comes. And, I find myself, the deeper I get into life, the more I find myself trying to take on the mindset of stop worrying about what might happen. Focus on what is happening. Trust yourself to deal with what might happen in the future. And, as someone with a chronic illness, I take a lot of medication every day. And it's hard to quiet that voice that says, what happens if this stops working? Or as someone who's also had cancer, what happens if cancer returns? I mean, that was a very loud voice for me for years. And I'm happy to say that I haven't thought about that in a while. But is that something that happens for you, that feeling of, what happens if cancer returns?
Oh, absolutely. My mom last year just beat breast cancer. And she was here in Hawaii. And so I was her full-time caregiver then as well. So just seeing that whole process. And now when I go to the doctors and they say, oh, does breast cancer run in your family? I have to say yes. right? So now on top of that, I'm getting mammograms done a lot more often than ever before because now I'm a candidate, right? Because my mom had cancer. And so, yeah, it's a constant, take care of yourself. I do a lot of, I try to do a ton of different preventative care, like the food that I consume. I make sure that it's nourishing my body and it's not just because I feel like eating. Everything is kind of premeditated, and I just try to take care of myself a lot better than I did before, knowing that this is it. Like, this is all I've got. It's just me, and I have so many people that are dependent upon me, So the constant, it could come back, is always there. But I try to just silence it and, take each day for what it's worth and not harbor thoughts there, because I'm a big what you put out in the universe comes back to you kind of person too.
Yeah.
So I'm always so afraid that if I overthink things, then I'm just going to allow the universe to be like, oh, it's really actually what you want. So here you go. You want to do it all over again? Here it is, So yeah, I mean, it's a constant little voice that's in my head, but
Yeah. And for you and I mean, my understanding of this is that 10 years out, that initial cancer has not returned. They only monitor you for 5 years.
Yep.
So is it possible that you or I could have a different cancer in the future? Of course it's possible, but that cancer is done. We did it. It's over.
Yep.
And who knows what the future holds?
Oh, that ship has sailed.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, high five. That's a nice feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, so you also have this parallel journey with your daughter, and it sounds like she maybe was starting to have some issues from birth that, by the time she's 2 or 3, you're already starting to track down a diagnosis. That's kind of unbelievable. What is your first memory of recognizing that something was happening with your daughter and you need to figure out what is this?
Day 4. She was
Day 4.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. We brought her home. She has a brother who is 6 years older than her. And, you as a parent, you do a lot of comparing, right? Well, Ben didn't really do this, or Ben didn't do that. Well, on day 4, Iris went to the bathroom and I was changing her diaper, and I noticed that there was blood in her diaper. And that's not normal for anybody. So I called the hospital and I spoke with a nurse, and she's like, oh, it's completely normal for little girls to, infant girls to pass blood in their, and I'm like, no, this is not that. I said, this came from her rear end and this is not. So that was the very beginning. And this went on for months and months and months, trying to find somebody that would listen to me, that my daughter is sitting on the toilet, or I'm changing diapers and the diaper's nothing but blood. Day in and day out. And I noticed, like, I nursed both of my children, and everybody always talks about the milk drunk, and they take pictures of the baby when they're done nursing and they're passed out and their little arms are like behind them and they're like, oh, the baby's milk drunk.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed that Iris's milk drunk looked completely different than Ben's. And Iris would fall asleep, but her skin would start to get real patchy and red, and she always just kind of looked uncomfortable. And I was like, something is going on. I don't know if it's allergies or what. So I completely cut out like the top 21 food allergens out of my diet. And so I started seeing doctors. They started referring me to, there's a children's hospital on Oahu. So I started to see an allergist. And the allergist was like, I don't think this is food allergies. I think this is GI related. I'm going to refer you to the GI. But of course, you have to go home and get the PCP, and then the PCP can get you the referral to the GI. So we go see the GI, and the GI ends up doing a colonoscopy on her when she's like 11 months old, maybe 12 months old. And he said that there was some irritation, but it looked completely normal. And I said, it can't be normal. I said, she bleeds all day long, right? So they did blood work. She had to have her first blood transfusion when she was like 18 months old. And it was just this constant battle. And I couldn't get answers. And it wasn't until I got angry, because I was so terrified that I was going to lose her, that I started to get answers, right? I literally There was one time where Iris was covered in head to toe in hives, and I immediately put her in the car and took her down to our pediatrician and stood in the office and was like, I'm not leaving until somebody can see her and know what I'm dealing with every day. And everybody just writes it off like, it's this or that or that or this. Then we found out that she has severe anaphylactic food allergies, which we found out. My son was drinking a hot chocolate and was kissing all over her face. He was sitting in the back seat with her, and she was in her car seat, and he was drinking his milk and then leaning over and kissing the baby's face and then taking a sip of his milk. And he looked up and he goes, Mom, I think something's wrong with the baby. So I pull the car over. Her whole entire face looks like Mike Tyson got a hold of her. I take her to the hospital, and they said, okay, it's probably a dairy allergy. So now they're completely taking away the GI issues, and now they're only focusing on the food allergies. But I'm like, there's more to the equation. Like, she's not nutritionally getting what she needs because her colon is so inflamed that she's not taking in any nutrients. So she's losing weight. She was just this teeny tiny baby. And so then we went to immunologists. They were just giving us any doctor, and nobody really knew what was going on. And we had one doctor tell us that he was going to remove her colon. So we left. We said, okay, I looked at my husband and I said, if this is going to happen, we need to go somewhere bigger, and we need different opinions. Yeah. So that's when we got on the plane. She was so sick that she had completely lost the ability to walk. She was so malnourished that her body was literally taking nutrients from her bones to try.
How old is she at this point?
Oh gosh, when we went to CHOP, she was just shy of her 3rd birthday. She celebrated her 3rd birthday in the hospital.
Wow. Taking nutrients from her bones to try to survive. That's a new one for me. I haven't heard that before. Wow.
Yeah. So from her hips, so she completely lost the ability to walk. So I had this little girl in my house. I'm like fighting with the insurance company, seeing what we can do to get her off the island. And finally, my husband looks at me and goes, let's just go. He was like, we'll deal with all the financials later. Like, we need to save her. So we jumped on a plane. Like I said, we took the red eye out and walked through the emergency room, and that whole entire team, we woke up the next morning and there must have been 50 doctors and nurses, and they were all just in our room. And it felt like we were the only people in that ginormous hospital. And they did genetic testing, and they did MRIs, and they did just everything and anything that you would want them to do. They did in less than 24 hours. And they came back and they said, Iris, in fact, has Crohn's disease, which we were all kind of shocked about. And that while she was very sick and very diseased, she was nowhere near diseased enough for them to remove her colon. Which was, I looked at Ryan and we both were just like, oh my gosh, thank God. Because there may come a time where that has to happen for her, but it didn't have to be when she was 3, right?
Wow. And so it's shocking that other doctor's like, let's remove her colon without knowing why. Yeah. That makes no sense.
And I thank God every day that I felt confident enough in who I was and what my marriage was, and that we were able to say no, because there's so many people that would have just said yes. You know what I mean? Like, for me, like, being an advocate is so important, especially for somebody who's so small and can't talk about, their symptoms or what's going on. Had I gone to CHOP and they said, you know what, Stace, this is what's going on. Your daughter's sick as hell. We need to remove her colon to save her life. Mm-hmm. Then we would have been, then let's go, because that would have been her second opinion. But when they came out and said, she is very, very sick and she is very, very diseased, but we're not to the point yet where we're going to remove her colon or, bypass her colon and give her an ostomy bag or this and that. And so that was a really, really big relief. So that we get this great medication. It's working great for her. We stayed at CHOP for about a month. We flew back to Hawaii, and she started to get sick again.
Wow. Okay, hold on. I got to pause you for 1 second. So I'm certain that when you're at CHOP and she gets this Crohn's diagnosis, that you must have gotten a crash course on Crohn's disease itself. And we haven't covered Crohn's in quite a while. We've had a great episode about it in the past, but for anyone who's unfamiliar, what did you learn about Crohn's? What is Crohn's disease and how do you manage it?
Well, Crohn's is an autoimmune disease that affects mostly your colon. It is not specific. I mean, it's tricky. I mean, it can get really crazy, but the broad definition is Crohn's effect. Your body attacks your colon. Your body sees it as an enemy and it doesn't want it to be there. So it literally tries to push your colon out.
Wow.
And so Iris, this is how Iris explains it to her girlfriends. She's kind of like, like when we're at a sleepover and we're all like having so much fun and everybody's hanging out. And then all of a sudden the party kind of gets quiet and everybody's ready to sleep. But there's always like one or two girls that want to keep partying and they want to stay up really late and they're making us stay up, but we're really, really tired and we want to go to sleep, but these two are still partying. And then they never go to sleep until the party just keeps going. And I'm like, Iris, that's a great analogy because that's what it's like. So it's her immune system is always here, right? So when she was little, she never got the common cold. She never got like hand, foot, and mouth. She never had like when she would go to preschool, like just around kids and stuff, she never got sick ever. And I would explain this to doctors, like she's never sick. And they're like, well, she's passing blood all the time. I'm like, yeah, but she never has a stuffy nose. She's not a snotty toddler. She doesn't cough. Like she's not ever sick. And that's because her immune system was always up here. It was always looking for something to fight.
Yeah.
She didn't have the common cold, or if she didn't have, a chronic or a cough or whatever, her body attacks her colon.
Okay. And
right?
so do you have to take immunosuppressant drugs?
Yeah. Yep. So she's been on biologics since she was 3 years old.
Yeah.
And biologics they either work or they don't work. So it's that whole game where, okay, we're gonna try this biologic and then it doesn't work. Okay, we're gonna try this biologic and it doesn't work. And then finally there's one biologic that's kind of the sweet spot. But biologics only last so long, and then you have to find a new one, right? So we're year 4 on this one biologic that has completely given her life back. I think that was the 3rd or 4th biologic that she was on. It completely turned her life around.
How do you diagnose Crohn's in a 3-year-old?
I guess just all of her symptoms, and then when there was a genetic marker that was mutated.
Oh, interesting. Wow, that's fascinating. And is there a special diet that she has to be on?
We follow all kinds of different diets. But as she's gotten older, I keep introducing different foods to her. That's fine. Generally, I feel like people with Crohn's disease try to stay away from gluten and dairy and things like that. But Iris is anaphylactic to dairy, tree nuts, peanuts, and eggs. So her diet is really pretty much just a whole food diet without dairy, eggs, tree nuts, and peanuts, which makes it a little bit difficult because they're such high in fat kind of foods. So it's really hard to put weight on somebody that is eating fruits and vegetables and lean meats. So we always struggle with weight. But since we have this new biologic that has calmed her system down, she's starting to grow and she's definitely still the shortest in her class. And I told her that will always be the case because I'm not a very big person. I was always the shortest girl in school. So, but her hair is growing and her nails are growing and she can live a complete normal life and have a childhood now where there were so many nights that I would pray because I just didn't think that was going to happen for her. So we get back to Kauai and our insurance wouldn't cover the medication that she was getting at CHOP.
Oh, no.
So she started to get sick again, and it happened a lot quicker this time. And so I fought with the insurance company again, and we ended up getting the okay to take her to Stanford. So we got on a plane, went to Stanford, and had an amazing experience there. And that is actually who her specialists are to this day, are her doctors at Stanford. They put her on new medications. We placed a feeding tube in her belly that she had for almost 4 years. And Iris and I lived at the Ronald McDonald House in Palo Alto for 3 months. And she had a Broviac tube in her chest to get her nutrients for 3 months, to give her bowels a complete rest. She had no food orally for 3 whole months. And it kind of reset her colon. All the swelling came down. She was able to heal a little bit inside there. And once the Broviac was taken out, we were given the okay to come home. And the insurance covered all of her medications. And so far, she has been out of the hospital. She hasn't had any hospital stays in the past 3 years. And her feeding tube is gone. She got that taken out about 2 years ago. So fingers crossed that she maintains this baseline and her medication continues to work, because it's just been such a crazy journey to get to where she is now.
So if the medication wasn't being covered, you go to Stanford. Is it a different medication that they put her on at that point? One that is covered by insurance?
Yep.
Okay, great. And that's something that you can just like live with and continue to take. It's so upsetting that we live in this society where other external factors that are completely financial and have nothing to do with the individual health of the person are dictating what we do with our bodies.
It's so awful.
Yeah, and you want to be able to say, oh, well, I'm just going to pay for the one that makes the most sense for me to take. But you can't, because they're thousands of dollars a month, and who can afford that? It's absolutely insane. It's really upsetting.
Iris takes 1 milligram. It's an injection that I give to her once a month. It's 1 milligram, and it's $27,000 for 1 dose.
Whoa. Hold on. You just made my brain explode. What?
Yes.
Wait.
I know.
I can't. Hold on. 1 milligram is 20. Say that again. I feel like I heard you wrong.
It's 1 milligram in a syringe. So I get this little needle delivered to the house every month, and it's 1 ml of medication. And it's $27,000.
$27,000 a month.
I found a program that pays for it, and I only pay $5 a month. But I get a bill in the mail that says $27,000 on it.
Oh my God. That's what people make in a year in this country. That's insane. I mean, I thought I had it rough with my medication being like $1,000 or something a month. That's unbelievable. And yeah, I mean, my insurance changed, so I'm now paying like $100 or something every month, which is a lot, and it's like I was getting it for $5 a month before, and then
that's what I'm getting mine now for is $5. I found this program. And the insurance company doesn't tell you about these kind of things. Like, you have to sit down and like do your research, like be your own advocate. And I found this program, and I called, and they said, yes, you're absolutely eligible for it. And I was like, great. And it went from, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this, to, okay, we got this, but like there was weeks and weeks of complete stress. Like, Ryan and I are like, how are we going to do this? He and I thought about getting divorced so that we could get state insurance for the kids, because everything's like covered by the state that way. And we were like, no, we can't do that. Like, it was just insane. It was complete mayhem. It's
like the insurance company is ransoming your daughter's life. This is unbelievable. How is this our system? And I understand that there are ways through it, and you found one. And again, thank God. I mean, but the fact that situation even existed in the first place is staggering. That is staggeringly disturbing. That is disgusting. And that's an American problem. You look at other countries. I saw something recently, like comparing the medication costs in America to other countries, and it's just staggering. I keep saying that word, but I can't think of a better one. It's staggering. It's
overwhelming. It's
arbitrary. These things are arbitrary. They are made up. These numbers are made up. But what isn't arbitrary is our lives and the lives of our children. Why are we doing this? This makes no sense. I'm upset. I've been doing this show for 5 years now, and that's the biggest number I've heard yet for a dose of a medication, by such a long shot that I really am having a hard time processing it. Wow. Okay. So there's a through line here, which is that if you don't fight, if you don't advocate, and if you don't push for yourself and for the life of your child, you can't make progress. And you have done that repeatedly, both in your cancer journey and then for your daughter. And now you're doing it for other people. And this is the hardest thing. This is the most important thing. It's something we come back to every single episode is you have to advocate for yourself. No one else is going to do it for you.
Yep, hands down. You have to be an advocate. And
Yeah.
maybe you don't have to be angry like I was at first, because I'm not that person anymore, because I'm not terrified and I'm not scared anymore as I was 8-9 years ago. But I feel like you kind of have to put the hammer down. Otherwise, you just get the runaround.
Yeah.
And so many people, and I'm not trying to throw any industry under the bus or anything, but so many people, they put so much trust in these individuals because that's what they went to school for so long. So when you walk into their office and you literally give your heart to them and say, please help my baby, and then they just go through the list, and then all of a sudden they can't help you anymore, or they refer you to somebody else. And it's just this, you're just like this pinball in this machine, and nothing's getting done, and progressively your child's getting worse until you start doing your own research and like asking the right questions. That's what's most important, like asking the right questions. If anybody's like, what's your one piece of advice? I'm always like, you need to ask the right questions.
This is such a great point, this asking the right questions thing. And then for anyone listening, I can imagine someone's out there thinking to themselves, how do I know what the right questions are? Because that was a huge struggle for me. When I talk to my doctors, and I've talked about this before, this whole idea of explaining what was happening with my mystery illness, not being sure if I was using the right words, having no idea how to communicate this internal thing externally. And after a while, I started coming to the conclusion that I needed to try different things. And I sort of, would vary it from doctor to doctor and how I was describing it sometimes, and try to get creative and really think about what am I saying and how is it coming across, and trying to simplify. I had this huge list of symptoms, and I started to focus on maybe 1 or 2 or 3 with doctors, the things that were the worst. And I don't know if this is good advice, but, I think the applying the scientific method to your own process of how you're describing things to doctors, have a hypothesis. Maybe if I say it this way, it will get different results. And then try it. That's the experiment. Record the results, see what happened, and then try a different experiment the next time. And you just keep trying. You don't have to get it right the first time. You don't have to get it right the 10th time or the 100th time. And it took me a decade. It took me a decade of having this. I mean, it took me longer than that. I had issues since 2nd grade, but it kind of was like on again, off again. And then, I had 6 straight years in my 30s of not working and going to the doctors all the time. And the illness had really kicked off. I don't know why I say decade. It was longer than that. It really kicked off in my mid-20s, and then it came back in my early 30s. And then I'm fighting, and I'm trying to get an answer. And, 6 straight years of just going to doctors and trying to figure this thing out. And I just tried different things until I got it. You just got to get it once, and then once you have the answer, you can move on to the next step, which is trying to advocate for your better care. Once you have that answer, that's a totally different journey. And it's all such a battle. Yeah. And no one else is going to fight it but you. And this is the horrible truth about the medical system, is that if you don't advocate, nothing will happen. So you just have to do it. You have to find the strength. I asked you at the beginning, where do you find your strength? And you listed not only your family, but your own desire to live a happy, healthy life, an internal and an external motivation. But it doesn't matter what your motivation is, as long as you have one, and just keep fighting until you figure it out. Yep. So, okay, you do a lot of advocacy work, and you work with Rare Patient Voice, which is an amazing platform to help people advocate for themselves by participating in medical research. Can you tell us anything about the history of Rare Patient Voice, who founded it, and what was the original mission of this organization?
Yeah, so Wes Michael founded Rare Patient Voice in 2013. He is the president and founder of Rare Patient Voice. He is a wonderful, wonderful human being. He is warm, he is kind, his door is always open, he's so easy to talk with. He was in marketing before Rare Patient Voice and saw that there was a huge market in medical research through that journey, and decided to branch off and do something on his own. And he tapped into the hemophilia community first, and tried to fill a study for a client for individuals diagnosed with hemophilia. And that's where he really saw the need for kind of a third party to build a panel of individuals and be able to provide that to pharmaceutical companies and things. The great thing about Rare Patient Voice too is it's completely confidential. So once an individual signs up to Rare Patient Voice, they're given a member ID number. So your name is never thrown out there, which I think for a lot of people is extremely important. We do tons of different conferences. We have a whole team that travels the globe to different client conferences, and we have an amazing team that travels the United States for different patient conferences. We find so much joy in being able to be face to face with patients and caregivers at these different conferences. So it is really like an untapped industry, really. I didn't really even know that there were for an individual who before Rare Patient Voice wasn't involved in medical research. When I thought medical research, I only thought clinical trials. I thought that the only way to jumpstart research personally, that I would have to take different medications and be a guinea pig. And, that just wasn't for me. If you want to do medical research, clinical trials, great. That's for you. Thank you for being that person. But for me, it wasn't. But when I joined Rare Patient Voice, there are so many other opportunities to have different breakthroughs for medical research. I mean, you can do a simple online survey, right? Like it's a medical industry saying, like asking X amount of questions, and that could help jumpstart the next big breakthrough. There are focus groups where you literally just sit down with 10 other individuals that are going through the same journey as you are, and the research company wants to know what your daily lifestyle looks like. Like that's research. Like those are opportunities for you to use your experience as a real individual and make real progress, right? And so Rare Patient Voice gives individuals that opportunity, and I just think that's amazing. And Wes has done an amazing job at creating this foundation for people to utilize, and it's such a wonderful resource.
Yeah, fantastic. And what is your specific role within Rare Patient Voice?
So I am part of the patient advocacy team, and I also am the social media manager. So I get the privilege of speaking to individuals like you on a daily basis. You were actually one of my very, very, very first people that I ever reached out to.
Really?
Joined Rare Patient Voice. Yep.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm. So you've been a partner of ours for a very long time now.
Yeah.
And so I do social media. I do Instagram, TikTok, all the major platforms. And I just bring awareness through our different reels and memes and our study posts. And then there's a team of us on the patient advocacy side that reach out to you, like how I reached out to you just through Instagram. And that's how we build our panel, really. Our little team is the outreach team, and we literally travel coast to coast to different conferences. I'm not that lucky to get to travel because I live in Hawaii, so plane tickets are a little bit more expensive. So I don't get to really do that, but I get to jump on and reach out to you guys in your DMs and hope that you respond, which you did. And that's how we do a lot of our outreach. So there's a lot of real connections. We have over 100,000 patients and caregivers in our panel, but personally, I know so many of them just from outreach, and it's such a wonderful opportunity. And I love it every day. It's great work.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Well, I have one more question for you. So you have this such specific experience as a caregiver for a child with chronic illness. And, I'm so frustrated by the part of your story where your daughter was sick and you were telling doctors and they weren't listening. And I think that there's so many parents who are experiencing that. And so many new parents have so much anxiety about taking care of their child. And it's sort of a classic scenario. I think it happens on sitcoms a lot where a main character will have a baby. I'm thinking about Frasier. This happened to Roz when Roz had a baby. And she's like going to the doctor and she's like panicking about something. And the doctor's like, this is totally normal. This is what happens to new babies. But then there's you, whose daughter has blood in their diaper every day. And the doctor's telling you it's normal. That's not okay. That's not normal. And it takes years to get to the point where they finally listen. And it's so upsetting. It's so upsetting and it's so hard for the parent. So do you have any words of advice for a parent who's in that position, who, is dealing with something with their child where they can't get a doctor to listen? What do we do?
You ask for a new doctor. It's okay to say no to a doctor. Before we had our diagnosis with Iris, we probably went through 4 different pediatricians. We went through almost every GI that Oahu had to offer us. It's okay to say, I am not comfortable with what you're telling me. I'm not comfortable with you. And I just need I just need a different opinion. I need a different doc. Like, it's okay to ask for help from somebody else. Like I said, we put so much trust in these individuals, but not everybody has the same experience as the next person or the next person. And there is somebody out there that knows what's going on. You just have to find them. And for Ryan and I, we burned a lot of bridges with doctors. None of our friends or family or anything like that with doctors, but that's what we had to do in order to save our child's life. We were in, fight or flight, and there was somebody that came to me in our chronic illness community and said, it's okay to ask for somebody else. You don't have to keep going back to that same pediatrician. Right. And then that's when I was like, oh my gosh, nobody ever told me that, And so that's when we started seeing more progress, where, like, when we saw the doctor on Oahu said that we're going to take your daughter's colon out next week, I said, no, we're not doing that. It's okay to say that. And then it's okay for you to follow up with somebody else. And I'm not saying find the doctor that tells you exactly what you want to hear, because obviously we were looking for a diagnosis and we were looking for help. But it's okay to ask for somebody else. I think that would be my biggest advice, especially not everybody likes everybody. And just because this pediatrician or this GI works for you, it doesn't mean that they're going to work, or for someone else, doesn't mean they're going to work for you. And that's okay. You just have to keep following. You just have to stay the course. You have to stay the course, find the doctor that's going to meet you halfway, and you guys come up with a plan. And that's how we went about it. Yeah.
Excellent advice. Stacey, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you today. It's been so cool to just get to know who I've been talking to at Rare Patient Voice for all these years. And I just want to say thank you again for reaching out. Every time someone signs up using our link, Major Pain Podcast gets a $10 Amazon gift card. And that's really added up over the years, hundreds of dollars in support of this show that I use to purchase the supplements that I take every day for mast cell activation syndrome, which are very expensive, when you have to take something every day and it's got to be out of pocket because it's not a prescription. Yeah. It's expensive. So this has been a huge support of me personally in my own chronic illness journey and in my advocacy work in creating this podcast. I am so thrilled to continue to be partnering with Rare Patient Voice. It's been a really wonderful partnership for this show over the years, and I hope it continues for many years to come. So I'm thrilled to finally get to talk to you, as close to face as we can be via Zoom today. And also just to hear your shocking story. I mean, your incredible story of advocacy, of caregiving, and of survival. I mean, it's been wonderful. So thank you so much for coming on the show today. Please tell us where our listeners can go to connect with Rare Patient Voice online or connect with you, any other places you want to direct our listeners towards.
Wonderful. Like I've been saying for the past hour, I absolutely love community. You can find us on all major social platforms. We're Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky. We're on all the platforms. We would love for you to join our platform, and I love to follow everybody that follows us as well. It builds community and it builds tons of different resources for all of us. So come find us there and let's chat. My inbox is always open, and obviously you can tell I'm super chatty and I love connecting. So let's do it.
Amazing. I'll tag Rare Patient Voice on all the social media platforms that we use for the podcast. Wonderful. And if anyone wants to sign up for Rare Patient Voice, I'll just say one more time, head to rarepatientvoice.com/majorpainpodcast to participate. in Rare Patient Voice and support this podcast at the same time. Stacey, thank you so much for your time today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
It was such an honor to be here today. Thanks for thinking of me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Major Pain. I'm Jesse Mercury, the creator of this podcast, with support from Trisha Schmidt and Casey McKenzie. Artwork by Egg Salad Salad. Our theme music is the song Time Machine from my synthpop album Sci-Fi, now streaming everywhere. Join our community on social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, all at Major Pain Podcast. If you have questions or comments you'd like to share with myself, our guests, or our listeners, send an email to majorpainpodcast@gmail.com. You can also head to our website to learn more about this show, support its creation, or leave a comment on any episode at majorpainpodcast.com.